Hello, it's another beautiful Thursday, and it's today's review. I'm your host, Ray Osazwa. We've got loads and loads to talk about. I've got two fantastic guests in the house to talk about some amazing issues on our national dailies. But before we do that, we'll take a look at our feature story segment. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. All right, welcome back. I've got Stella in the house to my immediate left. Stella, hello.
Hello, Ray.
And to my far right, I've got Fiona, our today's review reporter. Hello, Fiona.
Hello, Ray.
Good to have both of you in the studio today. Now, like I said, we've got lots to talk about, so quickly we're going to start with the White House invitation for the young boy who was arrested. According to this report, the U.S. President Barack Obama has invited a Muslim boy to the White House after he was detained by police for taking a homemade clock to school that teachers mistook for a bomb. Ahmed Mohammed, 14-year-old, was actually handcuffed from his school on Monday after bringing a device, you know, the clock that he made, to school to actually impress his engineering class teacher. Now, Stella, you were on the program with me yesterday. And we took this story of this young boy, intelligent young boy, who says his hobby is to invent things. And this particular invention, he wanted to just melt the heart of his teacher, you know, with it. But unfortunately, that was not the case. But we're glad. This is a follow-on story from where we were at yesterday. He's everyone, thousands and thousands of people from around the world, you know, he has garnered interest. People are calling for justice, you know, for this young man who all he wanted to do was, you know, to show, you know, how inventive he can be.
Yeah, it's a great thing to see, you know, the President of the United States stand up and actually invite the young Ahmed into the White House. It just shows that the world is listening, even our leaders are listening. You have Hillary, the likes of Hillary Clinton supporting this also. You have over 40,000 people standing up. There's a campaign his older sisters have started on Twitter saying, I stand for Ahmed. So it just shows that people are actually listening. You even have the likes of Mark Zuckerberg, who's also invited him to come to California headquarters for Facebook. And it's amazing. You have influential people who are now standing for justice on this young boy's behalf. And also, yesterday we were afraid, when we took this topic, we were afraid that this might affect his ability in future and how he will portray himself in future to everyone after he created something. And to see these influential leaders come up and support him, it's just, you know, it will make him happy and feel, wow, and then even though all this happened, it's given him publicity to be well recognized. And for instance, now look at the people who he has now, who have recognized him, and that can give him an opportunity to build greater inventions. And who knows where he could end up being in life.
Fiona, the head teacher or spokesperson really for the school actually did say that the way the school works, they encourage students and teachers to report suspicious behavior. In other words, she's saying that they would always take necessary precautions to safeguard their students and teachers. In this case, do you think that they took this overboard? When the police officer said at least 3 teachers called in, you know, to report the issue. In other words, they felt really threatened by what this young boy had achieved, and they called in the police. Do you think they took this a bit overboard in any way?
I do think that whilst they were trying to, you know, follow precaution and try to be careful, yeah, it was actually overboard. I mean, he's 14 years old, he's a minor, and he was handcuffed for just creating a time clock. I believe that, okay, maybe the teacher was afraid, but if she had looked into that a little bit more before jumping into conclusion and assuming that that could have been a bomb, it's she could have done something better. But you know, we can't just sit down and criticize her. Something really positive has come out of this story. He's gotten worldwide recognition. It could have been just his school recognizing this clock that he had invented, but now the whole world recognizes it. It's on Twitter, Mark Zuckerberg, even the President of the United States has recognized this.
But there are cases where you don't get this sort of justice. This seems like justice now, but the cases where people would suffer this sort of injustice and nothing of this sort comes out of it. So are you saying because all of a sudden the President of the United States is inviting him to the White House, that should suffice? Should everyone keep quiet? Because we're looking at a minor here. He was interrogated for over 4 hours without him being allowed any kind of access to his family or a representative from the family. In as much as something beautiful has come out of this, what does the law say concerning things like this?
Okay, in regards to this, when I was actually reading further into the story, in fact, when he was invited into a room, when he was actually about to be arrested, there were 5 police officers there. And in fact, one of the police officers, in fact, said, yep, it was exactly who I thought it was. So he had already assumed his character, the kind of person he was, what religion, what background
before
he had even showed up. So it's clear that this was racism, and that's what led to the injustice. So definitely something still needs to be done in regards to this. And I do think that, although, yes, we are standing up and supporting this and we're showing the recognition he deserves, justice still needs to be made because he's underage. Like when we took the story yesterday, he's underage and something does need to be done. His parents should have been there when he was being questioned. It is against the law for his parents not to have been there when being questioned. So something needs to be done, and those police officers need to be put under punishment of some sort.
Okay, we're going to watch a little press release, or a press conference, so to say, of Ahmed Mohamed, just expressing his gratitude to everyone who's come forward to support him. Let's watch the clip.
It's been quite a week for 14-year-old Ahmed.
So I guess everyone knows I'm the person who built a clock and got in a lot of trouble for it.
The bright young student ended up being dragged out of lessons and taken away by police, all for this, his homemade clock.
I built the clock to impress my teacher, but when I showed it to her, she thought it was a threat to her.
The officers who took Ahmed to this police station have faced criticism for their heavy-handed response, not least from Ahmed's family. They believe his Muslim-sounding name and religious prejudices blinded officials from seeing the obvious.
We live in an age where you can't take things like that to schools. Of course, we've seen across our country horrific things happen. We have to err on the side of caution.
But on social media, there's been an outpouring of support towards the 14-year-old science fan, with even the president tweeting, "Cool clock, Ahmed. Want to bring it to the White House?" His family argue his arrest has been a lesson in ignorance and racism, and there are calls now for more to be done to tackle religious bigotry within America.
How are you emotionally? How are you taking all this?
I felt pretty down that no one would know about this, but I guess it's all the supporters online and social media. It brought me to the point where I could see people who don't care for me, but every other person. It made me really happy to see all these people support me and support others.
Are you going to go to the White House and accept the president's invitation?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Let us know if you have any further follow-up questions. Ahmed's going to go inside, but we can talk to you on a different level. We're not going to answer any questions about the legal issues.
Well deserving for, an intelligent young man. Okay, quickly we'll move on to our next story. This one says Richard Glossip execution is halted by Oklahoma court. According to this report, 3.5 hours before Richard Glossip was scheduled to die by lethal injection, he won a 2-week reprieve on Wednesday from an Oklahoma appeal court, which said it wanted time to actually study new evidence submitted by his lawyers the day before. Now, the follow-up of this story really is that this 52-year-old man, Richard Glossop, has been sentenced to die by lethal injection because someone was framing him for, you know, employing him to murder his boss. Now, the investigation has been going on for a long time, and even though there were no physical evidence tied to Mr. Glossop, Richard Glossop, he was, you know, sentenced to death by lethal injection. Now, Fiona, before we even start to talk about this, could you update us with how many states really in the U.S. Have upheld the death by lethal injection? Yeah.
Well, in the United States, there are 32 states that actually go through the law by death by lethal injection, including the U.S. government and the military government, the military in the United States.
We are Christians here, so, you know, I want to look at this from the Christian perspective. Is this something that, as a Christian, really, anybody should embrace? I know there's a school of thought that says that if you know, use the sword on someone, you should also die by the sword. But is this how God looks at things like this? Are there no better ways, you know, that someone could be punished for an offense they've committed?
Well, I think personally that, you know, the law has changed, years have changed, and I feel that life imprisonment is there. That's why we have life imprisonment, that someone can stay in prison for life and they don't have to be set out into the world. So yes, a death penalty, it should be gone. It should be executed. It shouldn't be there anymore. You know, I personally believe that only God is the one that creates life and can take away life. Just, okay, although someone may commit sin and by killing somebody and they had no right to do it, yet who are we to take that person's life? At the end of the day, God sees every sin. He sees every sin equally. So at the end of the day, I feel if we want to judge that person here on earth, you know, because of a crime they've committed, so they don't commit it again, yeah, put them in prison, let it be life imprisonment. You know, in the
just before we came live, Fiona, we were talking about the fact that when we saw the video and the excitement, you know, Mr. Richard Glossop was elated, you know, to be told his sister, his family, they were there just ready to, you know, he did say he wanted his sister to be there when the execution is carried out. But when the information came and he heard that he was not going to die, he was so excited. You know, it's just so beautiful to see how people can, you know, appreciate the gift of life.
Imagine how, at this point, his life is not in his hands anymore.
He had no say.
And he was so excited to be given
2 more weeks.
2 weeks just to live and, you know, breathe. And I hope for him that they do find evidence to exonerate him, because it would be really good for him, because it's just like he may be dying for a crime that he did not commit. Yes. And the man who killed his boss has been sentenced to life imprisonment. I can't really say, you know, how fair is that judgment right now? You know, it's a question mark right there. The person who committed the murder
out the act
is in life imprisonment, and the person who has been accused is going to die. You know, he's been sentenced to that. So it's just a very interesting story, really.
We would watch the clip of the moment, really, where the ruling from the High Court came to halt the execution. We'll be right back.
Just before noon, dozens of news outlets expecting to cover the execution of Richard Glossop got a visit from the director of the State Department of Corrections.
The Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals has issued a stay for Richard Eugene Glossop until September the 30th.
Robert Patton shared the news just a few moments after telling Glossop's family, friends, and legal team. They embraced outside the prison and told us how Glossop reacted.
Richard was there and we said there's been a stay, and he became ecstatic. He said yes, and he pounded on the window. He was just so happy.
Glossop was convicted for the beating death of his boss, Barry Van Treese. Another man, Justin Sneed, testified that Glossop paid him to commit the murder. Glossop's legal team turned in new evidence they say proves Sneed set up Glossop. The court granted the stay of execution so that it could get more time to review this information.
It's impossible to take in that you're going to kill a person and then to get news like this that he's going to live life, death.
Sister Helen Prejean was among the people Glossop chose to witness his execution. The nun is an outspoken opponent of the death penalty.
So it's a day of justice, and for the people of Oklahoma. Good people in Oklahoma don't deserve to be doing this kind of stuff to each other.
The attorneys say they're collecting even more evidence and plan to submit that to the court, since Glossop's execution has now been pushed to the end of the month.
In a statement released to 2 Works for You, the governor says her office will, quote, respect whatever decision the court makes, as we have throughout this process. She continues to say that she's praying for the Van Treese family.
Amazing. It just shows you how that for every one of us who's got life, you know, we need to make good use of the time that we have. You know, for the man who didn't have that opportunity to decide whether he was going to leave, you know, or not, you know, 2 weeks, he's got 2 weeks. It's not, the case is not completely over. It's not clear whether or not after 2 weeks he will be free to go, you know. So for you and I, who it looks like we've got liberty, we must make very good use of every moment that we have. Quickly, we'll take the next story. This says how hundreds of Muslim migrants are converting to Christianity to boost their chances of winning asylum in Germany. According to this report, Muslim migrants are converting to Christianity in their droves in the hope it would greatly improve their chances of winning asylum in Germany. The report says that hundreds of mostly Iranians and Afghan asylum seekers have changed faiths at the Evangelical Trinity Church in a leafy Berlin neighborhood. Now, the tone of the reporter here is suggesting that some of these Muslim refugees are changing faith, are converting from Islam to Christianity, not because they really want to convert, but because in some way it would aid them getting asylum. Is this what you really think?
Well, even if that was the case, I think it's still fantastic. The fact that, at least there's something that's drawing them to go to church, to change their faith. And this could possibly be a way where they start hearing the word of God. They start seeing the way Christians are in church and actually take it seriously. And this will actually, in effect, transform their life. So I actually think it is fantastic.
Do you agree with her?
You know what I think? As long as they're coming into the church and they're there, they're going to be under the influence of God. And it feels like this is a light in the midst of all the darkness that has been happening, and these people are being drawn into the right way, the way of God and the way of salvation. And by the grace of God, as long as they stay there long enough, they will be converted and they will have true faith in the living God.
Yeah. In other words, when the Bible says faith comes by hearing, the more the word of God hits their spirit, the more they become transformed into that image of Christ. So it doesn't really matter, in your opinion, it doesn't really matter what the motive is right now.
That's right, yeah.
That they've just come into the sanctuary of God is all that matter. As they hear God's word, faith will be built up in their hearts.
It's like the Crusaders. If you look back in history, the Crusaders, they went around killing people. People thought it was a bad thing, but in fact, this is the reason why you see Christianity has spread all over the world today. So yeah, it is a positive effect. It has a positive effect.
Yeah.
Amazing. We'll watch the clip, and when we come back, we'll just say a final word about migrants, Muslim migrants converting to Christianity.
Muslim migrants are converting to Christianity in their droves in the hope it will greatly improve their chances of winning asylum in Germany. Hundreds of mostly Iranian and Afghan asylum seekers have changed faiths at the Evangelical Trinity Church in a leafy Berlin neighborhood alone. Many claim true belief prompted the move, but the decision undoubtedly boosts their chances of being granted asylum by allowing them to claim they would face persecution if sent home. Germany expected about 2,500 refugees to arrive in the country by early afternoon today after some 20,000 came in over the weekend.
And seek sanctuary in the church. One of those is Hassam. He walked thousands of kilometers from Syria.
I stay in Ungarn three days, and like a criminal, I visited in these 3 days 3 prisons without food, without water, and they have too many people, too many children, in the simple get out without clothes.
If Hassam stays in the church for 6 months, he can then reapply for asylum, this time here in Germany.
Okay, quickly, I was just going to ask you, from the clip we just watched, one of the refugees who's come from Syria, into Berlin, he said for days he's been on the road. It's been a really rough road, and he's only been accepted into church. Now, that would prompt someone to think that, okay, after all the suffering, seeing a church which is more or less like a refuge, he has no other option but to run into church, which sort of makes what the reporter is saying, that even though they are converting, it is not genuine conversion. It is just so that it can help their asylum seeking status. What do you think about that?
You know something, Pastor Chris has taught us that in the realms of the spirit, there's no such thing as a joke. A statement is a statement. Now, if these people are getting converted, the spirit realms recognizes it. It doesn't matter the motive. What matters is the end result and the transformation that would happen afterwards. Now, where else would they find refuge except in the house of God? So that's where the love is. And I'm so happy that this is happening right now.
And love can conquer anything. So it may seem like, oh, let's just do this now. But as, the people of God show them love. The report tells us that the pastor of the Trinity Church has actually started to baptize, some of these people. And that's baptizing them into the body of Christ. So they really have nowhere they're going. So even if they thought, oh, let's just do this to get our status changed, they've done something that in the realms of the spirit is not a joke.
That's right.
Amazing. Okay, quickly we'll move on to our next one. And Fiona, you want to talk to us about body image because the MP, an MP has actually called for thin models to be banned from catwalk. What is this about?
Now, we all know that it's the Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week and London Fashion Week this season. And there's been lots of criticism, especially from followers of Victoria Beckham, who used skinny models during her runway show. And there's been a lot of concern in terms of it's either a plus size model or a skinny model. Now, MP has said that since the voluntary code of conduct is not being followed, they're considering making a new legislation where a model's BMI should be between 18 and 18.5, and the usual number is below 18, which makes them really skinny.
So if you fall below, 18, you should be turned away straight away.
Well, that's what even countries like France has implemented the law. If you're below 18, you're considered too skinny as a model. Now, the positive side of it is that it promotes healthy eating, it promotes well-being of the models, and it could also address the issues surrounding the model industry, which are mental health issues like anorexia and bulimia. But the negative side is people who are naturally skinny, as they have claimed, say it is bad for them because when they do apply for jobs and they're below 18, their BMI, they'll have a problem because then they can't get jobs.
But the thing is, you're talking about, you're trying to speak for people who are naturally skinny. Sometimes when you see some of these models, they actually look sick.
Now that's the thing.
And when our young children at home sit and watch TV, that's what they see. They see an extremely thin-looking person, not looking healthy. And that's why you find that some of our children wanting to look like what they see these models look like on the, runway, they all of a sudden they don't want to eat. So it's sending the wrong message somewhat to some of our young children.
Well, that's true. That's true in a case, because that's one of the reasons for the new legislation by the MPs in the UK.
Oh, quickly we'll watch the clip and when we'll come back, we'll just round up on this topic.
The first thing that you know is that models are tall and skinny. So the first question is, how tall and how skinny do I have to be? And the answer is, depending upon the type of modeling that you're doing, height is important, and being skinny, in good shape, and healthy are important. No one in the business that is a legitimate agent is going to tell you to starve yourself, but if you photographically on film don't look good, then that's something that needs to be talked about. Maybe you need to lose 5 pounds, maybe you're retaining salt, maybe you're, but really it goes by measurement more than weight, because it's a fit issue. So you have to be able to fit the clothes. So if you're not in the size that you can fit into the clothes, then the designer can't hire you, because there's only one. It's not like you go to the department store and there's all sizes. There's one size and there's one look. They're trying to sell that look to all the buyers all around the world so that they can produce it. So that's why the fashion show is 6 months in advance. They need to know what's going to sell, what's of interest, so people, what they like. So you have to, that's been created and designed, and it's a certain size. Height is, the clothes, the length of a model, the proportion of a model is what a designer is looking for, what a casting director is looking for. So height is important. If you're talking about shows, the reason it's important is because everyone's in a line. There's other people involved. It's not just you. So they kind of, even though there are exceptions to the rule and not everybody, if you can be anywhere from 5'9" to 6 feet, that's a pretty big variation. But you're still tall. That's still taller than the average person. At least in America, that's taller than the average person. So, modeling is not the average. You're not supposed to be average. You're supposed to be something that people look at and sort of a fantasy of what beauty is.
Stella, quickly, if you can talk to us, what do you think is responsible for us rarely seeing plus-size models on the catwalk? This is not the first time, really, that we've heard people calling for extremely thin models to be banned from walking the catwalk, but the windows open to plus-size models is very tiny. You rarely see them out there. What's responsible for this?
Okay, first of all, you have to look at the designers. The designers are the ones that are creating the clothes, and when they want someone to represent what they're wearing, they want it to look good. And obviously, the first thing they think is if it's on a skinny model, it will look better than on a plus-size model.
They want it to look good. In other words, are you saying that when you are a size 12 or a size 14, clothes don't look good on you?
It's what is more attractive to the natural person, to the healthy woman that they're trying to sell. They're trying to sell that what is out there, and obviously to them, selling to someone who's skinny is what sells out there to healthy people. But obviously there's a call out for things to change. But again, you have to look at plus size models. I've seen plus size models, and some of them actually look big and huge. And is that what we're trying to say? Okay, it's healthy as well.
What is wrong with big?
It depends on what you mean by big. Like,
I mean, you just said some of them are big, so you need to tell us what's wrong with big.
Like, it depends on big. Like, they have health problems as well in terms of fitness.
This is a very interesting
If you're going to
topic
put a legislation, you have to minimize who is skinny, and you have to also maximize, okay, what is the most we'll have a size 12 as plus size, or size 14? What is the BMI for a plus size person, or what's a thin person? It's wrong to only look at a thin person, but we should also be looking, we shouldn't be one-sided in this matter. We need to be two-sided.
But plus size models don't look bad. They don't look bad. That's my point. They don't look bad. We are only promoting, extremely thin models walking walking on the catwalk, and it's not healthy for our young children.
I think that what would really be work for everybody is every body shape and size being represented on the runway. That's right.
That would help.
This is a really hot topic, but we have to stop. Thank you both for being here. Until same time next Thursday, it is bye from Fiona and Stella and I. Have a lovely weekend. Bye now.